notification saying we were going live.
Okay, we're good.
I can start.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining another episode of BIM's Dives. Today we'll be diving into water safety and diversity in aquatics with Dr. Miriam Lynch. I am Destiny Coleman, an undergraduate student here at FAMU. I'm studying environmental science. I've been a member of Black and Marine Science for about a year now. I got scuba certified with them through their immersion program in May, and I will give it off to my other moderator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carlee Jackson Bohannon. I am the Director of Communications for the nonprofit Minorities in Shark Sciences, or MISS for short. I am a shark and sea turtle scientist, and I've been with Black and Marine Science since the beginning. I helped form the first Black and Marine Science Week back in late 2020. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today because I am a swimmer. I was actually a competitive swimmer all through college. So I'm really excited to be joined by Dr. Miriam Lynch today.
Okay, so I will introduce Ms. Lynch. So Dr. Miriam Lynch is an advocate for increasing water safety education, creating equitable resources, and creating opportunities in aquatics. She has been privileged to serve as the Executive Director of Diversity in Aquatics, an organization whose diverse network of aquatic professionals, enthusiasts, and researchers are working to eliminate the drowning disparities, expose efforts, and systematic policies that create barriers towards participation and promote the benefits of all aquatic sports and activities, especially in historically marginalized and under-resourced communities. Currently, Miriam is using her experience and lessons from the classroom and pool to provide educational programming and collaborative partnerships towards promoting and supporting diverse communities. Aside from her work on the national level in aquatics, Miriam is a public school educator where her students placed in the 90% nationally for economics and personal finance. Currently, she is a part of the leadership team at West Springfield High School as a software-based technology specialist in Fairfax County, where she supports over 2,550 students and 240 teachers at the school.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I get tickled because I didn't do it alone, but thank you for that introduction.
Well, we are very excited to dive into a lot of these questions, pun intended. So the first question that we're going to ask today is, so earlier today, we actually asked our audience members over social media, what is the importance of water safety and diversity in aquatics? And at the end of our chat today, we'll try and go over a couple of those answers. But for now, can you tell us about the importance of water safety and diversity in aquatics?
Wow. I mean, that was a big question. I saw it on social media, on Twitter, and I'll just give you a setting for it. So where I'm at, I'm in New York City for the UN Water Safety Conference. And what they're talking about is clean drinking water safety. And when you're thinking about the importance of diversity in aquatics in the larger sense, it is bringing across all these entities together to combine thought, to provide different lenses in this space, to provide ideas, and to provide a network of people that can support one another. And that's exactly what we are as an organization. We have two parts of it. One is to be able to do the water safety education portion, but the other one is to allude to talk about and to showcase the opportunities in aquatics. For us, what we've heard, and I'm sure in your world as well, is that we always hear about the deficit side of Blacks and Brown communities being a part of aquatics. And so for us, we wanted to talk about the amazingness that's happening. And Carlee, I remember when you started your Marine and Science Week, and it was so great to see your passion for shark sciences and all that was going on and the lineup that you had. And that's what inspires us. That's what we want to inspire the next generation and the current generation that's out there, because we need to celebrate us being in this space. We have a historical tie to the water. We are water, and we need to have that be a part of the discussion, not always coming from the deficit model. And so for us, Diversity in Aquatics, we hope to bring together different organizations and individuals under that umbrella, the two parts, water safety education and the opportunities in aquatics. Because what happens in marine sciences could influence competitive swimming. What happens in competitive swimming is going to influence surfing. And what's happening in surfing is going to influence, and it keeps on going. But it all starts with, we do a tree of opportunity. We talk about it all starts with awareness, being aware of the water safety, but it also then starts with learning to swim. And then once you do that, the tree of opportunity is yours. You can be whatever you want to be in this space. And so when you're talking about what is the importance is all of those things. The things to say, not only what we know, what diversity provides on changing systems and organization wise, but also within aquatics is to celebrate all of us being in this space, however you come into the water, because we all are a piece of the water.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're focusing not on what, like you said, the deficit and like the negatives and what like we can't do and what's happening, but focusing more on the positive and celebrating our ties to the water. And not many people do that. So I think that's just amazing. And we need that representation in aquatics. So the next question we're going to go into is, why is water safety a larger issue in ethnic and minority communities?
Wow. I think the water safety is a larger issue because the deficit model has been put on us. The model has been, we don't swim. The stereotypes have been put on us that we are not a part of water, that water has been, actually, if you look at history, water has been taken away from us. Water has been culturally a part of our DNA, not only just physically, our blood is 80% water, but a part of our DNA as people and as a community, and where we lived and how we communed with one another and how we celebrated the water, and so if you look at historical markers along the way, there were distinct points in history that were to take away water and make it into a fear. Because fear, think about the transatlantic slave trade. There's actually, I think this was a tweet actually by Blacks in Marine Sciences, or an associate, that talked about the trade route. And actually you can follow sharks along the trade route. You can also see that there were times once we got to a land that water was done as fear and drowning was done purposefully to say, don't escape this way. To take away that relationship with the water. Then there were marks along and that were done policy-wise here, and I will speak upon the United States, that were done to separate water because of the threat was felt that of enjoying the water as a community, and it was privatized. There's a court case out there, actually, that was from a Northern Virginia man who wanted to join his community pool, but could not. And one way that they did in Northern Virginia was that they purposefully kept communities separate and privatized, and made communities and water and pools tied to the community, where you could, if you didn't own a house, you couldn't swim in that community. So there's all these moments in history that kept water away, the access away from our community, that created the larger issue of water safety, because the only place that you could swim were in areas that had high tide or that weren't financially accessible or financially taken care of, because you had things like white flight that happened and more. And so then you go through, there's a fear of water, right? That perpetuates there. If there's a dangerous place, there's a higher risk of drownings. Or if the place we talked about here at the UN was talking about environmentally not kept into safe, there was a lot of if it was a place that there was a factory nearby, or that they didn't take care of the land environmentally, that was a lot of times that was the designated place, or the Black designated area. Why would you go and have a relationship with the water in that way? Why would you be a part of that? And that also created intergenerational trauma, because a lot in the community, you feel that wow, you know of somebody who has drowned and been in that situation. So understanding why water safety is a larger issue, those two things, history and also intergenerational trauma, which passed down from generation to generation, and the trauma from history that's passed down from generation of somebody's grandmother or grandfather experiencing negative feeling towards the water because of something that's happened to them, was passed down. As a matter of fact, I was by the MLK Memorial with Dr. Shira Allen. She runs Black Girls Swim, and we were there just convening and just walking around DC, and a mother was like, "Don't go near the water," and the shout and the child and the fear, right? But the mother's fear as well, and what that would cause. The water is dangerous, and those are part of the larger water safety issues that affect us, is that trauma and that history that's just made a huge impact towards it. But I think it's also, there's so many other things, part of social determinants of health on things of water, because it's been treated as a leisure and turned into like, oh, that's a nice to have, not a need to have. There's a lot out there that affects our relationship to this area.
Thank you so much. I'm happy that you touched on history and how historically, Black people can't swim, or we don't do water because for generations, that's been taken away from us, and we've been instilled with fear because of that. So I have the next question for you. In many communities, parents who are afraid of water will pass that fear down to their children. So how can communities or instructors best support parents like these?
Oh man, there are so many different ways. I think first, the community, what we try to work on, especially when we're working on aquatic communities who have the resources and want to make connections, is first listening to the community. I think too much we go in it with a savior cap, and we're like, yeah, I've got the solution. And or in the aquatics realm, a lot of times we go, oh, I have this resource, come to me. I'm the expert. And I think one of the first things you've got to do is listen. And you've got to include the community into the water safety plan, because it's probably it can be tied into so many other initiatives and plans and opportunities in a community. One thing that we've been able to do is just listen. While we've been here at the UN, we're listening, we're learning as a piece of this from others, and especially what we're learning in the clean water space is that there's trauma there. So we can't even talk about water safety when we have things like Flint, Michigan happening, when we have Jackson, Mississippi happening. We can't even go to talk about water safety until we take care of water that is for survival, okay? And when you're afraid of just what you have as a basic needs, your hierarchy of needs that's taken away from you, how are you going to then be trusting of this element that is supposed to be supplied to you by the government and taken care of in this space? How are you even going to want to enjoy that piece? And, and that fear you talk about will pass down, and we talked about a little bit that intergenerational trauma, that's real. It is in your DNA, that's passed on from generation to generation, that affects you. I was lucky enough that my parents, my mother had her oldest brother drowned, but she wanted to break the cycle. Her cycle was, she didn't learn how to swim herself, but she said, my children are going to learn how to swim. And so she broke the cycle. And I think now in this generation, we're starting to see more people breaking and of our community, that cycle, that are saying that I want to have that opportunity for my child because I want them to have the tools and resources and nothing be the challenge ahead of us. But that took listening, that took opportunities to provide the opportunities too in this space, because it doesn't just go with, oh, I have a free swim lesson, come to me, but going to and meeting communities at where they're at. And that's what we do. We start with awareness. That's the first step too, is let's just talk about water safety. Let's talk about water. Let's, when you've done the listening, let's talk about what it is, because we don't have to be near a pool to be able to say, be safer around the water. I didn't have to learn how to drive in order for my parents to say, oh, make sure you do this and this when you're in a car, wear a seatbelt when you're in the car, right? I didn't have to be in the car to do that. Or when we talked about, and the reason I talk about motor vehicle first is that if you look at the unintentional deaths, you got motor vehicles are number one. Drowning sometimes is number two for most categories. And then number three is poison in some categories. But we talk about poison in school. We talk about motor vehicles, but in some school systems, we miss water safety, or we think that it can only be talked about in the school, in the pool. But we can help to communities to create that awareness by having the discussion about how to be safer around the water, no matter what type of body of water you may be. You may be, a lot of times we only think about it, what's passed down the fear is like, don't go near the pool, or don't go near the lake, or don't go near the ocean. But guess what? We take a shower every day. We can take a bath. Those are also the discussions about water safety. How do we make sure we're safe at home? How do we make sure that in a wintertime, even if you're in a northern climate, how are we safe if there's ice? Or we have to talk about it in hurricane situations, right? Turn around, don't drown. That's the big one when we're around hurricanes. So in communities where parents who are afraid of water, we've got to start the discussion. We've got to listen, and then we have to have and create the awareness. And we have to have the discussion, and then we can create those opportunities to engage, right? Is it engagement with your local Jack and Jill chapters? Is it engagement through fraternities and sororities that are helping to support communities and having those discussions in those spaces? And I think that you can combine efforts, right? Because your community leaders and your community coalitions are a great way for partnerships to happen in that way, right? You can go to the local, like I just did with my goddaughter. We do story time about water and mermaids through Girl Scouts. And I come in and we pick a new book and we talk about how do we enjoy the water in this way? And then the parents get involved with it that way. So there are so many different opportunities when we're talking about, yes, there's a fear, acknowledge it, but there's also an awareness. How do we become safer? Because a lot of times fear is the unknown, right? Fear is, I don't know how to be safe. I don't know what to do if I was in that situation. So you create the awareness. We've got to listen, create the awareness, and then create those opportunities in our communities. So I think that's some of the main things that we've learned in this space, but we're always learning every time in different spaces where we are of how to work with our communities, because everybody's a little different, right? We're not a monolithic people.
Thank you. I really liked your story that you brought up, because it's really an example. Be the change you want to see. And if I can't, I'm going to make sure I empower someone else to carry on. So the next question we have for you is, how did you first become passionate about teaching water safety to others? A little background from you.
Yeah, I originally did not think this was my life plan. I was working, I'm a graduate of Howard, so shout out to a fellow HBCU. My goddaughter's mom is from FAMU, so I can't be remiss without giving some shout outs to my lovely Rattlers. But how I did not know I would be a part of water safety. I was on the track. I was an international business major. I worked for IT companies and things like that. And what happened, and just to make a long story a little shorter, is that I was working in Chicago and I was just burnt out from corporate. And I was just, we were going into work at 6 a.m. I didn't come home till like 9, 12 and at night, and then still doing work for the client. And blessings be that the market was starting to turn in 2008, just to show my age a little bit. And that was an opportunity for me to like look elsewhere, because there was just a lot of different things happening with our organization. And so I came home. It was an opportunity for me to connect with my sister. We're 10 years apart. She was in high school at the time. And they were like, well, do you want to be a swim coach? I was like, oh, sure. I'll do this while I'm waiting on the beach, right? In corporate, in consulting. So became a swim coach. My old swim coach, Pete Morgan, had some opportunities as well from Nation's Capital. And then I was just like, you know, I'm done with corporate. I love this part of swimming. I got to hang out with my sister because I was her high school coach. I was assistant coach at the time, and I was being involved in, as I transitioned from corporate America to the education route. I became an educator. And I was like, I like this. I get to at 7:30, I get off at 3, I still see the sun, and I can do swimming. Psh, bank, I'm great. But what affected me and made me do the pivot was that there was a drowning in DC. And there were stories, and I knew from my own family and experience, and I knew from my own experience, I had a friend from high school who drowned my freshman year when I was at Howard. And it just was perpetuating. Like, I kept on hearing stories of drownings and more drownings, and it didn't make sense because of the opportunities that arose from being in competitive swim and what the knowledge I was gaining in this space. And at the time, USA Swimming was starting their initiatives with DEI. And I just didn't understand. I was just at the infancy of my understanding of water safety. And what was the disconnect? We have, for us in DC area, I think we're the top 5 producer of Olympians. I think DC has put the metropolitan area, what we call Potomac Valley Swimming, has put an Olympian on the map for every Olympics since 1988, we'll say. That's huge, because our square footage is one of the smallest imprints for USA Swimming. And I just was like, wait, we're so powerful on this side, but yet I'm hearing about drowning on the news on the other side. Why aren't we working together? This makes no sense. And so that's what started my passion into water safety, was because there was a disconnect. How could you have some of the most powerful clubs in the nation on one side, not working on the water safety side, which helps to fuel you to get into aquatics? Well, we know why. There's historical markers, and we know that there were other factors and locations where swimming is that created this fragment in this space. But I just wanted to be a part of the change, right? You said it. And I knew I had swimmers in my group. And I was like, look, we're all volunteering. We're doing a water safety, and we're going to get out there. And guess what? You're going to help me in connecting with other people. And that's how I got connected with diversity in aquatics. Dr. Sean Anderson, as a matter of fact, I went to a convention. He was like, okay, great. You're going to do a water safety. What else? Like, he literally chatted, and I was like, what? I got my kids, and we got flyers, and we did all this stuff. He's like, no, what else? And I love that question that he posed to us, because it made me sit back and said, there's more that can be done. There's more research that can be done. There's more community work. It's not just a checkbox, yay, we did a water safety festival and leave, but what are you continuing to do in communities to create and renew that relationship back to the water? And that's what the challenge was. And that's what propelled me with diversity in aquatics, because I felt it was the organization that I could felt be seen, and that others were having this conversation where we can have conversations like this to get further into teaching others about water safety and starting with those steps and doing it the right way. Because so many times when I was in different spaces beyond diversity in aquatics and networks like this, is that it always started with the deficit. It was like, Black and brown communities are 5 times more likely to drown. That's why we're doing water safety. I was like, no, that's not why we do water safety. We do water safety because it creates opportunities. We do water safety because it creates relationships back to the water. We do water safety because everybody should have the right to be safer, right? Not just because it's 5 times more likely or there's a deficit. We do it because that is what, you know, Plato said, man must learn how to swim, right? And he had, that was a part, it's a part of who we are. It's a part of our connection to nature. And it should be our I would say Dr. Tiffany Cross says, swimming is a human right. And so that's my passion. And that's why I'm in it. That's why I stay in it. That's why I work, you know, my 9 to 5 is working with West Springfield and that community in education. But I take those pieces that I've learned in education and tie it into what we're doing in aquatics, because it is a public education good, right? Water safety should be that good that everybody gets a piece of in this space. So I know that was a long-winded round, but
no, I absolutely love hearing your journey. That's a beautiful journey. And it's just, you know, I feel like so many people who get into this type of passion, they always start somewhere and then they're like, you know, like, what else can I do? Just like what you said, Dr. Sean asked you, like, what else, seeing those disconnects? Because I also see those disconnects here in Florida. We're surrounded by water, and why do I keep hearing of people drowning or in these, you know, I used to teach some lessons as well, and then just a bunch of little Black and brown kids who just terrified of the water and just like, you know, you live in Florida, right? There's water everywhere. But I also loved how you, you know, looked at it more so of what water can teach you, and not like, you're learning how to swim so you don't do this, so you don't drown. It's you're learning how to swim, so yes, so you don't drown, but also because you can do more things. So absolutely love it. So that kind of transitions into our next question for you. So what are some places where water emergencies can be, you know, at largest risk?
Oh, wow. Everywhere. Everywhere there's water, right? You can drown in just a small amount of water. And so for statistically, we say pools, apartment complex, because they're not regulated, but everywhere. Let's start with where water is. Water is, we know, the larger bodies of water, but water is also around your house. It is where you are, your bathtub, your shower, being safe there. Your children being safe. A lot of times, you know, we bathtub opportunity, right, when they're little, and we you know, temperatures and not being on our cell phone and being attentive in that bathwater space. And so providing that safe space at home and building that relationship at home to the water, and then helping to trickle it into other things is that when you're on a boat, okay, are you making sure to look for all the things? Like, I go on a cruise with my family and I'm the person like, okay, I see they got the boats right there, cool, and they got the life jackets, and I'm the person going through the briefing with my family before we go through, you know, you go to the edge and you do briefing with them, and I'm just going like, okay, everybody's safe. So when we do this, if something happens, they're like, Miriam, you're going to be the one that saves us, and that's always the joke, right? I'm like, no, we're all going to be saving each other because we're going to know what to do, right? And those are the emergencies that the largest risk is that you gotta look at every situation, but no, like you're gonna look across, you're gonna be, if you're in a big city like New York, you're like, okay, what could happen? How am I gonna make this happen? But you're still gonna enjoy it, right? You're still gonna enjoy those things. When you go on vacation and you have opportunities to be on vacation with your family and you're going on boat, are you looking to see if there's life jackets? Because we've learned there's so many different situations that families that have happened, right? We've heard those stories. We've heard of at home, the bathtub. We've heard in the backyard pool, the pool drains. We've heard on the boat. There was one in Michigan, the whole family, because they were going through the rough seas, or it was on the lake. And then all of a sudden the weather turned and it got rough and there were no life jackets on the boat. The biggest thing with the CDC they've reported, and I talked about it earlier, was about apartments and being a large risk for Black and brown communities because they're not regulated by a lifeguard. And so pools are also big risks because we may go into the pool and say, hey, I can go off the deep end, I want to go to the diving board, and that's a risk. Oceans, rip currents are another part of risk, and being aware of what to do with the rip current, right? They say float your feet out, take it, and then walk, and then swim to the side, right? There are so many places that water, but if we are more aware of where those emergencies are in different places, if we're provided the information to learn, okay, what can I do to be safer at home? Okay, that bucket of water, make sure it's emptied out at the end of the day so a small child doesn't wander to it. Make sure that if I have a pool in my backyard, do I have a safety fence around that pool? Do I make sure that also all doors are locked if I'm going to somebody's house that has a pool? Do I make sure that I have a water watcher when we're going to the pool or we're going to the ocean with our families? Not being the person, we can get all caught up into it, myself included. I love some social media, but if I'm assigned, when we go out to the beach with my goddaughter and we're in that environment, hey, Kristen, you got her, I got her. Somebody is going to make sure to have eyes on each other, okay, in that space. And so designating somebody, there are many organizations that have what's called the water watcher card. So you put it on and it's just your awareness of, I'm going to be the person in case of emergency. I'm going to be the water watcher for this hour. And then the next hour you can have fun and scroll all you want, or you can do a light lifeguarding, right? The 15 minutes, like I'm going to take 15 minutes, you're going to take 15 minutes, and we're all going to take time. But every place is a potential risk. I don't want to say one place over the next, but every place you just have to be aware, just like we're aware of other things, like even with our cabinets, right? Like you make sure there's a lock on the cabinet so somebody doesn't get into the cleaning stuff. You make sure that there are things around your home with ladders, right? Unintentional falls is another big one. And you make sure around your house, like I've got a sturdy ladder, or I got somebody that's, gonna be my spot checker when I'm going for that top shelf and that big pot up there. Those are all big risks. But and that can cause emergencies, but we all do things to make sure that we are safer in and around them. And it's no different with water, okay? Making sure like, hey, and having that discussion with the family. Hey, you guys, just like I do with my family, hey, we're going on a cruise, but listen up. Make sure you're aware of where the life jackets are. If you do not feel comfortable going on this excursion, make sure, like, let's have a talk about this. Don't be afraid to have those conversations with your family, with your loved ones, so that you can not be in the emergency where there's a big risk, okay? And that you have been proactive with those things. And I think I kind of skipped to the last, but I think that's the biggest thing. But in this world, pools, oceans, are the largest, but also at home too. And it's different for different age groups in every way.
Yeah, thank you for that. So kind of staying on the topic of awareness, sometimes you're not taught this unless you're, in a lifeguarding class or some type of instructor class, but could you let us and our audience know what are the signs of possible drowning situations?
Oh, there are so many. Drowning is silent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's first start with that. It's not like the movies show you, and yeah, it can be like somebody like help, but drowning could be, it's a silent one. When you see someone start to go under, like we always do, like don't play, right? Like don't play and you're trying to hold your breath underwater for a long time, because that's something, somebody is right on top of the water. If they stop, right, in that motion, and then you don't know what's caused that, and then they can easily just start to go under, or their motion stops. And you might not hear it. And that's why we say it's important for you to have a water watcher on hand, because that person's going to know the change in behavior for that person. And that's something to look out for, is what is the change in behavior in this space to know, like, this is a possible drowning situation. Being able to watch, with rip currents, like, whoa, there's somebody, they're steering off. Okay. Let me make sure to call for help. Also with their body, if they were going horizontal, then going to vertical, or other signs of drowning. Drowning can happen in a number of different ways. We talked about in different environments, from home to being out in the environment. But I think what the biggest thing, the signs, is to look for that change in behavior with the person. Are they too far out? Did they disappear from where I saw them last? Where are they? Looking for that, because it's not gonna be like you see in the movies, like, oh, this flail, because the person's probably lost energy to be able to even put their arms up and give you a shout into asking for help. That you might see that, but that's not always the case when we're talking about the signs for drowning. Okay, so it's just being able to, that's why you have to know, you have to have that discussion with your family or whoever you're going and to share this place, even if you're going like with friends and you're like, hey, we're going and we're doing this excursion. Okay, make sure somebody has their eyes, their awareness on each other, because you can't, lifeguards are doing phenomenal, summertime, since COVID has released and we've all been outside the house, we now have an opportunity to be, the pools are now being crowded again, which is great. Love it. People are enjoying the water again. But like when I first started with this mission with water safety, the pool was so crowded. The 4-year-old girl was found on the bottom of the pool. They didn't even see her until they started clearing out the water, because it was just so many people. Again, silent. It wasn't a big yelp for help. It wasn't a dramatic event. I don't know what happened, but what we know is that she was on the bottom of the pool for too long. Okay. When you hear of children drowning in their backyard, which we've worked with many different families, who have had their own children drown, it's because they didn't hear that the child went into the pool. And so those signs, you just don't even know. It's silent, it's dip in and then just a sink. And so you've got to be able to be a watcher in this space. And I say that as just being a proactive, not to put fear into the discussion, but just to say that you can be a part of the prevention, right? That it isn't something that is going to be what you see typically, but it is something that you are going to see a change in and being aware of and having discussions. So you're like, hey, if you're tired, come back in. Or if you understand near the pool drain, don't go near the pool drain. and just sit there and let, you know, be careful of those things, because it can happen anywhere or anyhow. And when you have those discussions, then you become more aware. Just like, hey, when you're in the car, you put on your seatbelt, but we don't stop driving, right?
Thank you. And our next question, you briefly touched on it some with, you know, knowing where lifeboats are, having life jackets, having a water watcher, so being attentive. So what are some ways that families, that individuals can best prepare themselves for a possible water emergency?
Oh, wow. I think the best thing that you can do, and what we've done in our family, is everybody should have a life jacket. Like, even mom, it's a funny story. Like, I'll tell you a little funny story. I remember we were going on our first like cruise, and my mom bought us life jackets. And my sister and I looked at each other like, Mom, we can swim. Like, we're on the swim team. We're good. She was like, no, you have to have Coast Guard approved life jackets. And she's like, because you don't know. Right. And nobody is too good. Like, my sister swam D1 in the SEC, and my mom still had a life jacket for her packed in her suitcase. And it's like, you're not too good to wear this. And she was right. She was 100%. Thank goodness for my mother, bless her. And but that's the thing. You're never too good to be prepared, right? No matter how good of a swimmer you are, to have the safety equipment that you need to have in this space. Make sure you have a life jacket. Make sure that you've got somebody that is going to be a water watcher with you, that you're going to take turns. And if it's going to be the whole tribe that goes to the pool, that, hey, you know, if I'm going with my goddaughter to the pool, and it's like couple of us, hey, I'm going to watch this time, and then, hey, just know the next time period you're going to watch. I think too, what I talked about earlier is having the discussion. Hey, we're just like you do, like, well, my mom used to always have the discussion before we went into somewhere public. Hey, this is our rules. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do this. Like a city, right? Like, stay close to me. Make sure if you get lost, you're going to do these things. Let's have those same discussions when we're going near the water. Let's have those discussions like, hey, we're going to the beach. All right, everybody make sure somebody is watching each other. If you gotta tell me where you're going before you go. Hey, wear your life jacket. Make sure to stay with the pair, right? Stay with somebody else who's gonna be there with you. And having that discussion and then taking action on those steps. Right? Taking action to say, okay, now that we've talked about how our water safety plan as a family, we're not going to act on it. We're going to make sure that when we go on that excursion, yes, my sister and I on the boat, we're with our life jackets, Division I swimmers, that we're with our life jackets, because guess what? We don't know how it was deep water we were going into. We didn't know the situation. No matter how good of a swimmer you are or an athlete that you are, you just don't know when you're going to need it. Just like, and I think that there's so many different situations of where that could have been, where lives could have been saved if we were better prepared. Making sure that if you're going to a facility where, like a hotel, right? And many hotels now swim at your own risk. That's what they'll put. No lifeguard on duty, swim with your own risk. And part of that just bothers me, because I'm like, wow, you know, but at the same time, have that discussion. Okay, we're going to the hotel pool, and this is how we're going to make sure we're safer around the water. We're going to make sure that there's going to be an adult present if there's youth in there. If you're an adult, making sure that you're not having alcoholic beverages around the pool. Okay. Because that inhibits you from having great awareness and what decision making in and around the water. Making sure that if you are going to a place that doesn't have a lifeguard, making sure that you look for what are some safety devices that are around. So if I'm not the strongest swimmer, I know I can reach or throw, right? I can use a a crook, the hook. I can use the life buoy. There are things around that's going to help me in this situation, right? So it's just one of those look, see, and then be able to make that plan is how you can prepare yourself for it. Or even if it's like, we're going to make sure that we've got everything we need. You make sure you have everything you need for a car trip. Make sure you have everything you need when you're going near the water.
So you've talked a lot about your sisters who are swimming D1 and you're the swim coach and you know, we're probably swimming for a very long time. So what role did water and aquatic activities have in your upbringing?
Man, I didn't realize it. It was my everything. It was my community. We're a military family, and it was wherever I moved, I went to the pool first. I was just naturally drawn near the water. It must be my sign. But I love the water. Water to me is peace. Water to me is the place where I can be me and relax and feel centered. And so wherever we moved, being a military child, it's always that awkward phase where you have to meet new friends and you've got to meet a new community. And I'm an introvert by heart. And so my introvertedness would be shy, like at the first day of school, like, hi, yeah. Oh, I hated to have to introduce myself, especially if we moved to the middle of the school year and everybody's staring at you. But what always was the best part of moving was seeing a new pool. I'm a swim geek, okay, guys? But being at the pool is where I met friends before I had to start school, right? I met teammates before I had to be in a new environment. Matter of fact, some full circle moments, some of the people that we moved to different bases in Germany, I have a friend, her name is Anne Marie. And to this day, there's a joke, I yelled at her name, Anne Marie, because of something that happened, but she was in the base in Germany. We moved to DC and she was on my swim team in DC. And that was like a connection right away. Our families connected, we connected before I even had to start school. Another girl I knew in the military, we were like 6 years old in Rhode Island, reconnected when we were in high school swimming. And almost went to the same college and swam there. It was just all a part of my community. And then I didn't know what the universe had in store for me on this half. And to utilize those connectiveness and understanding all the things that were put in my path as a military child, then going on and having to pivot from my career into water safety and education to lead me to where I am now. It is a passion, but it's a purpose, right? Because there's not enough of us in this space. And that's why I'm such a big fan of this organization and each of your organizations that you do individually in the work, because I'm a fan. I look at your work and I'm like, yes, Black women are doing it. We're out here, but we're out here as a community. And it's good to see everybody shine in this aquatic light, because I feel the love that water has given me, and to see others' relationships with the water, and to hear that you're studying your undergrad at FAMU, studying environmental science. Like, yes, that is so important to have that voice. And so I'm a big fan. I'm a fan of others in this space, and I admire those who are doing this work. Because there's not many of us in this world, but we're all connected through water. And I think there's just this unwritten kind of connection that we have. It's that when you see somebody in this space, you're like, yep, let's go. How can we support one another? How can we do these things together? And so that's the role water has played. It's been that connector. Water is the great connector. It's connected land. It's connected, it's nourished, it's brought back to life. But I think it's also done to that for me as in my journey. And I feel that it's done that for others and created that connectiveness too. So it plays a huge role. I'm still growing up. I'm older in this realm, older than I look, but I'm still growing. I'm still learning. I'm still learning from others in this space, what water and the role that water safety plays. Like I've said, we're here at the UN and I'm learning from indigenous communities, the relationship, the spiritualness of water, and what is being done purposefully through that is creating further marginalization in their communities, and how it's being still taken away in communities like that. I'm still growing in this space to understand those things, and even understanding my own connectiveness to water and what I need it for healing and addressing my traumas or relaxing and finding peace. And that's what the role it plays.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think I definitely can empathize because I also was a water child growing up, and all my friends were swim team, or, most of my friends, I'd say even now in my adult life, there was some connection with the water that I met them through. So yeah, really awesome. So I guess in your own life, have your water competency skills ever been very practical in your own life?
Oh man, yeah. As a coach, I had a swimmer who had epileptic seizures, and we didn't know what the triggers were. But what I will say this, as a coach, I was fearful, but I wanted to create opportunity, right? Because I didn't want to be like, well, because my fear, you can't swim, right, on our swim team and participate how you need to participate. Because guess what? If this is your joy, my job is to figure out how we can continue that joy and to continue making sure that it's safe. And so she had a seizure. We had, just to give you, so we had a plan on our team, is that all of us were part of this. All of us in my group were a part of her joy and success in this team. There was an unfortunate event that she had a seizure during practice. And that's when I had to use those skills from being a lifeguard. That's why as a swim coach, you have to take Water Safety 101. You have to get your lifeguarding certs, your CPR certs, because you just don't know what might happen in that space. And we had to actually go in, rescue her, put her on the backboard, make sure everything was okay. I had to use those skill sets. Now I'm thinking I'm coaching with one of the best clubs in the when would you have to do that, right? And everybody laughs, right, about the lifeguard being on the side of NC2As. But there are situations not only like that in practice. There was one of the coaches that we featured for Women's History Month. She's the U.S. artistic swimming coach. And during world competition, she had to actually use her lifeguarding skills to help us artistic swimmer who had passed out during competition in the water. So there are so many different ways that my own water competency has had to come in to play in this space. Being a skilled swimmer, knowing those water safety rescues, being able to be aware as we're talking about water safety, and being able to make sure the community knows the right information. It's all been practical in my life. Believe me, when I go on those cruises, I'm like, okay, who is okay? Ooh, yep. All right. She did. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Right. Like you just do that conversation with yourself. Or when we're on the girls trip out to, St. Croix, and you're like, yay, we're all okay. Everybody, your lifeguarding senses come on, and you're like, okay, everybody. Yes. Okay. Yay. We're all safe. You got a life jacket. Okay, good. I mean, those are it's just innate in you. We all know it. Because we're part of the water and our relationship to the water, you just can't turn it off either. So it's all been practical. People joke with me about it, but I'm like, it's not a joking matter, but hey, I'm gonna make sure you're safe. We're all safe. Like I said, my family goes, you're gonna save me? No, we're all gonna save each other. But yes, I will be there for you if you need me.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, this is perfect segue into the next question. So is there a difference between just learning how to swim and learning water safety?
Yeah, There is. What we say often, as I talked about with the community work, is water safety has two parts of it, right? It's the awareness. It starts first with awareness. And so water safety is the awareness and education point. The learning to swim is the action of the awareness and education. So you can understand water safety, but you don't have to learn how to swim. Like you can say, oh, if I know the 10 water safety rules, great. But then you might not have to say, you might not have to learn how to swim. So they're two distinct pathways, right? We hope that you do 1, 2, 3. You are aware, you get educated, and you learn how to swim. But even the fourth, then you become a marine scientist and change the world like you all are in this space. But there is a difference. Being water safe and aware, that's great. That's the first step. And we hope you use that first step to become more interested and want to participate to learn how to swim.
Thank you. And it's looking like we're running a little low on time, but Dr. Lynch, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to sit down, to chat with us and our community. We really appreciate all that you and Diversity in Aquatics do. So as we wrap up, we want to thank you once again. And can you tell us how the audience can connect with you?
Yeah, follow us on social. Right now, we actually are getting ready for some big events for International Water Safety Day, where for first time, we're going to be in LA, May 6th. We hope you guys, anybody in the LA area, please come out. We're doing a big festival to celebrate aquatics. And then May 15th, all across the world, we're partnering with our friends and our friends, Janelle Atkinson. She's the two-time Olympian, but she's also the executive director of International Water Safety Foundation. They celebrate every May 15th International Water Safety Day, which is raising that awareness on water safety. And we hope you participate in it by sharing the water safety rules with your communities out there. So those are amazing ways to connect, but follow us on social, just like we follow you guys. Share, connect. We're all in this together. So thank you all.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Thank you to the audience. Please join us again for our next BIMS dive on Friday, April 28th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Love the conversation we're having.
Yes, this was great.
Thank you.